Today we got to talk about Gary Patterson, who is the new special assistant to the head coach at the University of Texas. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am the host of the #1 ranked show where we talk about college football. And every now and again, I do these VOD uploads where there's a topic that I feel particularly interested in talking about that just didn't make it into the show. This is where we do that. And Texas Christian losing Gary Patterson was a story. I think it's an even bigger story that Gary Patterson is now working at the University of Texas. And there's a couple of quotes that come to mind when this news came down the line to start the weekend. It's kind of filtered through, and I got to thinking about what I think about it. First one is Harvey Dent talking about, hey, either you die the hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. I don't think it's that drastic with Gary Patterson. It's just a cool quote, but it is trying to contextualize what it means for Gary Patterson to work for the University of Texas. Now, there are a lot of things that fall into place here, particularly as Gary Patterson no longer was head coach at Texas Christian, and there was a need and a want for him to be on the 40 acres, where he's going to assist Steve Sarkisian in a variety of ways, and there are a lot of ways in which he could help Steve Sarkisian turn Texas into a winner. The other one to really take into consideration there is Chris Del Conte's the athletic director at Texas, and he was the athletic director at Texas Christian. And the two are very close, Gary Patterson and Chris Del Conte. And this news kind of started to trickle out when Gary Patterson showed up at the Irwin Center in a white polo wearing a Texas logo. And we're like, you're gonna take this job that seems to be tailored for you? And that came down the line here just a little bit later on. The other quote that comes to mind is, quite honestly, Macbeth. There's like two of them, right? The first one, the young Seward asks Macbeth what's his name, and he says, my name's Macbeth, and Seward says the devil himself could not pronounce the title, so hate it by mine ears. And Macbeth says, no, nor more fearful, which is to say that everybody's got to be a little bit afraid of Gary Patterson helping what is a sleeping giant, quite honestly, and the University of Texas get to be closer to achieving what we all expect Texas to be, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. The other one is, I almost forgot the taste of fears. The time has been my senses would have cooled. Ugh, to hear a night streak and my fell of hair. It's a dismal treatise, rouse and stir. I have supped with horrors, direness. Goodness me. Yeah, I don't know that this is going to go well for the Big 12, is what I'm saying, right? Particularly University of Oklahoma, but also Iowa, Oklahoma State, or Iowa State, not Iowa. Iowa actually is on my brain because at the time that Gary Patterson stepped down as head coach at Texas Christian, Iowa's Kirk Ferentz was, the longest tenured head coach of any program, and Gary Patterson's the second longest tenured of any program. And to put this in perspective, Gary Patterson had been coaching Texas Christian as the head coach since I was 13 years old, right? He became the head coach in 2000 at the Mobile Bowl after Dennis Franchione took a job at Alabama. That's how long ago that was. Like, Nick Saban had just got to LSU. Gary Patterson has not just been like a fixed point in time, like Garris, since, forever, but Texas Christian has been good, right? Like, I think he was 181-79 as a head coach. And like this year didn't go very well, but he has won the Big 12, and he was jobbed out of playing in the college football playoff. He has overproduced defensive talent in particular, like it's his job, because it has been. This dude would go and find guys that were just not highly recruited or missed an evaluation, and he would find a running back and turn him into a defensive end. He would find a quarterback and turn him into a linebacker. This is actually one of my favorite conversion stories is Ty Summers was going to play quarterback at Rice, and Gary Patterson talked him into playing linebacker at Texas Christian, and it worked. And that dude played all over the field. Marcel Brooks was an outside linebacker on a national championship team at LSU. He was going to play some wide receiver at Texas Christian. Shadrack Banks was going to play some H-back in high school, and he's playing in linebacker. It's all over with him. So, the thing that I think that he could add right away to Texas is really reevaluation. Go through their roster, go through their players, and tell Steve Sarkisian and Pete Kwiatkowski which one of those guys he thinks is playing out of position, and then follow what he asks you to do. Because it's not about whether or not Texas has talent. That's one of the reasons we're always talking about Texas. It's also one of the biggest programs in all of the sport. And that's what I want to get into about how Texas is going to be. You know, I've been bullish on Texas. Quinn Ewers at quarterback, Bijan Robinson at running back, Xavier Worthy at wide receiver. They got a transfer in from Wyoming that's really good. Jaleel Billingsley at tight end, I think can have a breakout year, and I expect to. And if the defense is anything like decent, yeah, we might see a really great Texas football team in the short term. Goodness. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Creeps in this petty pace from day to day. Yeah. This could be a tale of sound and fury is what I'm saying. I'm very excited to see what Gary Patterson adds. And for what it's worth, what I've seen from Texas Christian fans is they love Gary. And another point here on how just odd it is, Gary Patterson has a statue outside of Texas Christian. So imagine Bob Stoops becoming a special assistant to Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State. Like, that's how it feels, right? I think it's going to go well, and I want to be clear. I'm excited for Coach Patterson. I'm excited for the University of Texas. I understand if you're a Texas Christian fan, you feel some kind of way about this. I get it. I understand. But I also want to commend those that have come with this with a point of not just humility, but also practicality. The man wants to work. 61. For perspective there, Nick Saban is 70. He's still got years that he could be a coach. He could be a head coach down the line. We'll see where it happens. But I'm also thinking after 20 years, he deserves to do whatever the hell he wants to do. And this apparently is what he wants to do. And I can't fault him for that. So, take a little time. All right. That's it for me. Deuces.